Hey everybody, this is Eric Schweitzer with the Gamer.com editorial team, and I'm here with features lead Jade King to talk about her review of Dead Island 2. Jade, this opening is pretty fantastic, I gotta say.
Yeah, like Dead Island 2 is way better than it has any right to be. Like
Hmm.
after God, when was it announced? Like 2014, 2015, and they re-announced it last year, and there was a big, oh my god, Dead Island 2 is going to be rubbish. But no, like this is a strong, competent, open world game, and it doesn't like change the world or anything, but I had a damn good time of it. And as you said, like this opening is a really good trendsetter to what to expect from the rest of the game. It's like quite a visually stunning, high octane set piece that explains a lot of the stuff you'll be doing. Like I think there's a lot of like fire propagation here and some thunder stuff and looting. It's simple but it's effective.
Talk a little bit about the different characters, because that's one of the things that sort of sets it apart from Dying Light. I find myself comparing it to Dying Light
Me
because.
too. It One of the things I expressed to a few people on the team as I was reviewing it is it's kind of what I hoped Dying Light 2 to be, which is parkour aside, relatively like drab and uninspired in a lot of respects. Where this is also somewhat uninspired and cliched, but it leans into that knowingly. And I played as Danny, who's like this Irish rocker who's into like mosh pits and drinking and poking fun at people. She's very much an outsider in the context of LA, and I think that's makes her a really fun character. But yeah, like in the opening plane sequence, it like shows you all the different characters you can play as. Like there's a guy who pretends to be a firefighter. He's like stereotypically buff, but thinks he's really cool. And I heard that's quite like a fun, down to earth character to play as. Or there's like a mechanic who I think is Latino, and she's very like spunky and brutal and honest in her dialogue. Like I played through the intro with her too. Or I think there's an Asian character who also seems like a more grounded option for the female characters as opposed to Danny, who's far more over the top.
Mm.
But yeah, I had a fear that it would grate like the original Dead Island with like a lot of the humor or the writing just proved really obnoxious in the original game. And
Right.
it's obnoxious here, but it feels more competent and better acted, and as a consequence, it even
Hmm.
made me like laugh out loud a couple of times, which I didn't expect.
Well, and just the chopping off the zombies' heads can be pretty
That's
hilarious
good
too.
shit too. There's
Yeah.
there's some great gore in this game. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that seems like kind of the main selling point of the whole thing. Um, I read your review, and there's other reviews out now too, and it seems like the consensus is like, if you want to bash zombies with a big hammer, we got you. But anything else, I don't know.
I don't know. It's good gore. Like those
Yeah,
limbs come off real good. Like
yeah,
one of the immediate things I discovered was like weapon types that cut things off like super effectively, like machetes. There's so many like weaker zombies you can go up to and just chop at the legs and watch them crawl, or you'll sometimes use like weapons imbued with like this acidic slime, and sometimes you'll hack away at a zombie but don't kill them, and next thing you know, like this skeleton covered in like leaking flesh is like trying to eat you, and it's disgusting, but it's so good. Like
yeah.
the gore in this game is excessive to a point of hilarity, but it leans into that so well. Especially, I got a powerful rifle from a side quest, and I developed a habit of just like finding zombies, shooting them in the leg, watching their legs fall off, and watching them crawl towards me, and just doing that constantly as I like lured them into traps and stuff like that. It kind of feels like an effective way of, because some of the enemies in this can feel a bit like bullet spongy, or like they take a lot of hits to take down.
Uh-huh.
But unlike other games where you're just looking at an energy bar, there does feel like there's a tangible progress to wearing away like a certain zombie. It's like, okay, this dude looks like a skeleton now, and they started off as just like a buff beach dude, and that is this game's big selling point. But I think there is like other positives to it. Like I mentioned earlier, the combat system kind of revolves around a lot of elemental stuff like
Mm.
fire, electricity, and this like somewhat rarer acidic substance, which is basically poison. And the majority of combat environments, or even a lot of the open world, will have cars with car batteries in them, which you can take out, throw at zombies, and zap them, and so on. And you're often incentivized to make use of pools of water or equip customized weapons in certain ways. So they take advantage of those properties. Like if I made my sledgehammer impactful or imbued nails with it, you might come across like a spiky zombie who would be immune to those attacks, or a
Mm.
zombie who is on fire might also be immune to subsequent fire damage, which makes no sense like in real life, but it kind of is effective here. Or you'll find Uber drivers with like food or water boys with water, and if you see them, you're like, okay, if I shock them, they're gonna shock an entire horde, and it almost becomes like a matter of crowd management in some ways.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And I've noticed a lot of that in the footage, that there's kind of this light, immersive sim, like emergent gameplay quality to it. Where the elemental stuff is very like Breath of the Wildy, but then the way that you're navigating through environments, it seems like you have like multiple ways to get into these houses and stuff, depending on like if you want to break the security camera to unlock the doors, or use the tools in your environment to your advantage.
Yeah, because there's a location early on which is basically Logan Paul's house is like the closest comparison I
Mm.
can think of. And there was a room, it was completely locked down, but part of me thought, oh, but there's like an open window over there. So I kind of threw a weapon, broke the window, and kind of jerry rig parkoured my way onto it. And
Hmm.
there's quite a few rooms you'll go into. There might be like a big pool of water, like that's been electrocuted, and you're like, okay, I need to deactivate that or find another way around. And it's never ever like particularly challenging or in depth, but it does feel like some consideration has gone into that aspect of the world design, which is not something I really expected from this. Because otherwise, one of the big underwhelming things for me is that it's not a cohesive open world. It's very much different areas of Los Angeles segmented into their own playgrounds. So as a consequence, it can be inconsistent.
Yeah, I want to talk about the LA of it all too, because this isn't the first game set in Los Angeles. I think
Mm,
the big ones that come to mind are like GTA and LA Noir, but those are, for lack of a better word, I guess, like stylized versions of the
yeah,
city where I live. Whereas when I look at this, I'm like, oh, that's LA. Like there's this kind of eerie realism to it, you know,
yeah,
ignoring that it's covered in blood and bodies.
yeah. I think that's true. I think where that resonated the most with me is like places like the Hollywood Strip, or you go. There's a huge Venice Beach, Santa Monica level in this, and
Hmm.
it's probably the biggest in the game in terms of just like detail, side quest, and the stuff you see. And it really does feel like walking down those places in real life, but they're just like now infested with zombies. It's surprisingly good world building for a game that is very much trying to satirize Los Angeles and not take itself too seriously. But maybe that like truncated scope in terms of it not being a true open world also allows it to shine a bit more.
Yeah, and just the metaphor of like this like extravagant, lavish place that's dead, that's completely lifeless.
Are
I like
people really
that.
the zombies, Eric? Think about it.
We're seeing, we were talking about this before, but now we're seeing how you can like find a water jug to put out the fire, to get to the breaker to turn it off, to get into the room. Like,
Yeah, because this is very early in the game. You're breaking into like a mansion, which essentially becomes like a base of operations for like the first half of the campaign. But there's a lot of puzzles like this where you need to like consider maybe you need to throw the battery to get over like certain obstacles, or take into account where it is or how you need to move. It's almost like Metroid Prime-esque actually, like some of the puzzles.
and then for the weapons, like obviously that was kind of the signature thing in the first Dead Island, was like finding a bunch of junk and stuffing it together and making like elemental weapons and stuff.
Mm.
I assume that they're crazier here. What's like the most wild weapon that you were able to put together?
I don't know. I kind of one of my favorite ones was like I got a samurai sword and I made it where it's essentially like a samurai sword with a flamethrower attached to it because I'd upgraded it so much. And
Yeah.
there's some ridiculous like permutations where you can like add perks on top of attachments. So you can have like a sword that will just tear all the zombies' limbs off at once, or like set them on fire so that spreads to other people. And there's a lot of like freedom in terms of like the weapon design and so on, but you will find like a sort of weapon combo that suits you. I say one of my biggest gripes is the durability of the weapons can be a bit, what's the word, like they can wear down quicker than you expect, and it can cost
Hmm.
quite a bit of money to repair them. And I was the kind of person who like loved a consistent loadout, even though I was finding new weapons all the time.
Yeah.
But there's a good amount of variety. It's like simply explained, and I do think there are some things that are introduced too late into the game and you never use them. Like you can eventually use like zombie parts to make like zombified perks and so on with your weapons, but I never used them because I was so close to the end and I was already felt powerful enough.
Mm. Yeah, the crafting menu we just saw, it looked pretty simple. There was like 3 slots, and then
Yeah,
you could
there's
add
like
different
colored
stats
weapon
and
rarities and stuff. Traders, they're just awkwardly placed NPCs who sell you stuff for some reason. Like this dude is like, yeah, I've got like 10 guns, and now here's a quest to go find guns because we need them.
and the money is just like scrap metal or something.
It's real money, but there's a lot of money around.
Oh, okay.
You also have
Gotcha.
these like consumables, which are essentially like throwable weapons with cooldowns. Like one of the first things you get is a ninja star or like bait to attract zombies. Or one of the ones I used was like a pipe bomb that also electrocuted people.
Oh, okay, gotcha. And
Uh,
so then this would be like the Santa Monica Pier level, right?
yeah, this is maybe about midway through the game where you're set on like a goose chase in the night to Santa Monica Pier. Because there's a lot of levels before you unlock them to explore. It essentially becomes like go to this place, do this quest, and now you're free to go into the whole thing. And that was this instance where you need to go to the end of the pier to find like a laptop. But it also happens it's full of zombies, and there's a clown zombie at the end of the pier that you need to kill. And there's a lot of objectives will boil down to activate this thing. Zombies are coming, fight them off, and it's rudimentary, but it's fun. Like, and it's not particularly challenging, so long as you're not like, as long as you're a gamer.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, going back to Dying Light 2, it's just that game felt like it was trying to do so much
It
and
did, yeah.
half-assed most of it, and this feels like antidote to that almost. Like it's just exactly what it is.
It does, and it gets better as you go because you get more powerful and you get more used to its systems. Like you saw my inventory there, and I've just got loads of crap, and I'm using a gun here, and I'd say guns don't come into play until about halfway through the game. And enough of mechanics and doing everything. You have like fury mode because you're immune because it's a zombie game, and throughout your like infection gets worse, and you start unlocking these like latent powers that you can use. Like
Mm.
you gain like heightened melee damage and so on, but you can also gain like extra abilities which are equipped using cards. So I think one of the ones I had was I could like spew poison at my enemies and it would just like eradicate them immediately and do like a good amount of AoE damage. I didn't play around with those too much, but it seems there's a decent amount of variety if you wanted to really like build an OP loadout.
They've done such a great job with like color and lighting and level design. Like
It's
it's really like
yeah,
a theme park experience.
it's really like punchy and charming in a way that it really needed to be. Like I'd say some of the weakest parts of Dead Island 2 is when the narrative switches to a serious dime suddenly and it
Mm.
hasn't been built up enough for you to take it seriously, especially when most of the characters you play as seem to be aware about how silly their situation is. They're like, oh, I'm going to kill loads of zombies and all that stuff. They aren't trying to survive. They know it's nonsense. Where I guess, yeah, like Dying Light 2 took itself very seriously at points too, and I don't think the characters of the acting were quite strong enough to carry that.
Yeah, I totally agree. But there's also horror too, which we're seeing now with this like fucked up
Oh, this
clown
is the
boss
clown
fight.
boss, yeah.
Yeah, is there a lot of boss fights?
Not particularly. There was probably like 5 or 6 throughout the game that you follow this kind of template, where you're like in a locked off arena and you need to fight them. but they don't extend very much beyond be tactical in your dodging and deal as much damage as possible. Like
Right.
this clown is quite powerful, but to me it felt like they were essentially just like a new enemy type that I was fighting for the first time. Because
Oh, okay.
they can eat people and regain their health, but you'll kind of have to like shock them with electricity or set them on fire or distract them in a way so they can't get away from you. I was
There's a
wondering why
lot
this
of
guy was a clown. Are there clowns on Santa Monica Pier? Is that like a big thing?
no. I
I
guess
was
it's
gonna
just like
say,
a
just
carnival.
a clown man.
Yeah. No, there's just one guy, Clown Man, and I guess this is him.
This is clown man. What's the?
um
Because I went past a seafood restaurant, and that reminded me of the one that's there in real life.
oh yeah, I don't know. I'm sure there's a few there.
You're the local, Eric. You should know.
Yeah. I don't know. It's such a tourist trap. I don't spend a lot
Oh, it
of
was
time
hell.
in
I didn't
Venice
like it at
Beach.
all.
Yeah.
But no, like this boss battle, I don't think I died. Like, there's only a couple of boss battles I died on in this game because I didn't really implement strategy. I kind of just equipped the strongest weapon I had and swung away,
Yeah.
and it seemed to work.
Well, it works. Yeah.
Blast.
There was so many people talking about the like phobia settings for the New Horizon DLC. How like if you're afraid of being underwater, you can like tweak the settings.
Oh yes,
You
yes.
know, as like an accessibility thing. And I was like, man, wait till they see the fucking clown demon
Oh, do you not like
in Dead
clowns?
Island. No, but that's a pretty common phobia, right?
Yeah, maybe it's an American thing. I don't mind clowns, but still, they're not very common over here. We got Ronald McDonald.
Yeah, yeah. We well, not so much anymore, but we had carnivals.
We
That
turn
was
off the zombies if I don't like zombies.
oh right, yeah.
Just walk
Fear of
around
zombies
LA.
too. Yeah.
Games are woke, Eric. But no, like Dead Island 2 is pretty. I gave it a 7 out of 10 in my review, and it seems a lot of that lines up with the critical consensus, but I'd
Yeah.
still label this as like a really pleasant surprise. Like, if you're after a kind of silly zombie game that isn't too long, doesn't take itself too seriously, is excessively gory, then yeah, like, it's much better than the first game. I prefer it to Dying Light 2 because it just gets me, I suppose.
Yeah, it's one of those games where it's like, a 7 out of 10 isn't a super impressive score, but also like there's just not that much to it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not like some groundbreaking thing. It doesn't have a bunch of new ideas, but it's just like solid in its execution. And if you just want to bash zombies, but that's still like a pretty accurate assessment. So it's kind of one of those weird things where like you have to set your expectations for
Yeah,
this
like,
kind
don't
of
come into
game.
this expecting like The Witcher 3 or something. I very much
Yeah.
like Dan Buster who made this. Their last game was Homefront: The Revolution, and that is a
Okay.
bad video game. So
Yeah.
all things considered, like the fact that Dead Island 2 has turned out this good feels like a miracle to me. And it's not like if they made another game like this in a different setting with like equal amount of reverence, then it would be quite fun. Like, I wouldn't turn that down. But then again, we've got DLC for this coming up, so maybe we'll see more of LA.
Maybe they'll come down to Orange County and you'll get to tear through Knott's Berry Farm or something.
Come to your house, Eric.
Yeah, the next one takes place on my street.
Oh no! Oh, this guy
Uh,
killed me loads. But yes, Dead Island 2, good.
and here we are ending at Venice Beach. And this is pretty much exactly what it looks like. I've seen that guy there
Yeah, he's there.
before.
That guy too.
Yeah.
But just fight. You go to Venice Beach, just scrap him.
Yeah. You better bring a weapon because it's pretty wild there. There's cops around, but they're not doing anything.
Yeah, see? It's true to life, Eric. I just killed a
Well,
cop there.
I'm glad you liked it. I'll probably mess around with this one. I've been meaning to get back to Dying Light 2 now that it has a bunch of
Oh,
DLC,
it's
and
just fucking hell.
that was pretty good.
It
And they
was.
keep talking about how they're reverting, like they're making the parkour more weighty, and they're like adding guns, I think. And I think they're trying to make it more like the first Dying Light now. So I was gonna get
I'll
back
have
into
to give it
that,
another
but
look too.
yeah, but this looks like my kind of thing. Nice, some nice gory violence for if you need that kind of outlet.
It's refreshing. I
And who
needed it, I
doesn't?
think.
I think a guy at that blue stall there sold me a bunch of counterfeit Disney T-shirts one time. So
Oh, am I killing him now? Is that him?
yeah, yeah, that was him. That was Gary.
Ah, one in the head for luck.
And tell me one more time what your score was.
7 out of 10, or 3.5 out of 5 if we're doing the star
Perfect.
scale.
That review will be linked down in the description. Thank you so much for watching. That's it for this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell, and visit us at thegamer.com. That's the gamer, no space.